Hello to the pessimistic, optimistic, and everyone in between. My name is Connor Philippi, and welcome back to the Minnesotan Sports Podcast. And we are almost there. We're so incredibly close. Week 1, first game, September 7th. And just a quick reminder about that, by the way, while we're getting started, I'm going to be doing my very first live stream in the history of this podcast on September 7th. It's going to be from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. that Thursday. I'm going to be breaking down the Lions and Chiefs game, as well as just hanging out with everyone that comes, and just whatever questions are asked in the chat I'll answer. And it's just going to be a fun little stream where I'm just kind of getting my land legs streaming wise, because I've never streamed before. I'll put a little more information in the description, and there's also a video fully explaining it a couple videos back from here. So make sure you watch that and come and chill, and we're just going to get hyped for the start of the season in that stream, and I can't wait to get that started. But today we're going to be going over the top 10 teams that have the most pressure going into this season. And honestly, it was pretty easy to differentiate these 10. Usually with these top whatever lists, like the bottom 3 and the first 3 out are just so difficult to figure out. But I feel like these are the 10 pretty clear teams that are under some serious pressure this year. And I'm going to go from 10 to 1. And please let me know in the comments what you feel about this. But let's just start with the teams that I think kind of missed the mark. And maybe these are some teams that some people think have certain pressures on them, but these are teams that I don't think quite deserve to be on this top 10 list. The first one is the 49ers. And I think that that's because some people think that they are under pressure because, there's a few years now that they've almost made the Super Bowl or have made the Super Bowl and lost, and they're kind of trying to get to that point. But Shanahan's offense is going to dominate for years now. I mean, it's pretty clear. You got quarterbacks, no one even knew who they were a couple years ago, and now they're in there. And any quarterback in this system is going to produce some wins for this team. And so I feel like the pressure isn't quite there for the 49ers. It feels like they're going to continue to be good. Next one is the Bengals. And the big reason why I have the Bengals not on that list is because they're going to be good for the next 5 years. They've got so many young guys on that team. Joe Burrow is that next level quarterback, just like Patrick Mahomes, where even if they do struggle to get to a Super Bowl in the next few years, they're going to be good for years. Burrow's going to make them compete for a long time. Next, we have the Patriots. And I get that there's a lot of pressure on certain players in that organization, as well as Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick trying to prove he can win without Tom Brady. But I feel like he already did that because this Patriots team wasn't supposed to be good in the last couple of years. And they've almost made the playoffs. They've made the playoffs a couple years ago. They almost made it last year. I mean, I think he's already kind of proved that. And also, it's more pressure on Mac Jones and this entire team. And maybe in the next few weeks, I'll make a video about specifically the quarterbacks that are under the most pressure, because it really is separate from this list. But the Patriots themselves, I feel like they've just had too much recent success with Tom Brady and that whole franchise being one of the best 20-year franchises, or the best 20-year segment of their franchise history out of any team in this entire league. So I just feel like they're not far enough removed from that where we can say that they're already under a lot of pressure to succeed. And then finally, we have the Dolphins, because kind of the same reason as the Patriots, where Tua is a quarterback that's definitely going to be on that quarterbacks with the most pressure list. It's not really his fault because it's injuries, but he's still on there. But it's not really the whole team. The team just started to become good the last couple years. It's not like they've had a long stretch of time where they haven't been able to make that leap. They just started to kind of ramp up. So now, starting with the actual list, we're going to start things off at number 10 with the New York Giants. It's another guy in Daniel Jones where he is under a lot of pressure as a quarterback, but I think that's this entire organization is, because they invested a lot in this offseason. I think that they tried to make their offense even better than it was last year. It was about middle of the road last year, and their defense got better, the offense got better. And this is kind of a make it or break it year, I think, for the Giants, where they've got a lot of young stars, but also I feel like this year their style and the way they're going to play the game is really going to be determined by whether or not this system works. Because now the Giants have genuinely good offensive line, good defense, and now Daniel Jones has more weapons around him, especially with Darren Waller. I just feel like this system is going to have to be reworked at the end of the season if they don't succeed. Not to mention the fact that they have pressure of their division. They've got the Commanders, the Eagles, and the Cowboys all breathing down their necks. And this offense is going to have to be much better this season in order to deal with just the crazy defenses that are in that division. At number 9, we have the LA Chargers. This is a team that year after year shows so much promise, and they've got so many offensive weapons. They've got a lot of guys on defense. They built a team that was supposed to go and compete for a championship last year, and they just didn't win enough games to put themselves in a prime position, so they had to play an away game against the Jags, and you'd think that would be a game they'd be able to win, and they were up 27-0, and then it all fell apart. And this Chargers team has a history of doing that. They're another one of those unfortunate franchises where it feels like they're always able to get close, but they always seem to choke in the end, and they just can't quite get to that point. If they don't perform this year, there's going to be a lot of questions. You know, they extended Herbert to a long-term deal now, making him one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league, and they paid all these players that are more on the veteran side than young, and they do have some young talent coming in with Quentin Johnson and all those guys, but I just feel like there's only so much longer for Austin Eckler. There's only so much longer for Khalil Mack before he's going to want to go to a different team. They have some big-name free agents that are going to leave this team if they don't succeed this year. And Justin Herbert's going to make this team competitive for a while, but how competitive is he going to make this team, and can they actually win a couple games in the playoffs this year in a very competitive AFC? Number 8 is the Bears. Justin Fields and this offense, I think they're going to go into this season, and people are going to expect this offense to take a big leap. They're not expecting this team to be a championship caliber team by any means, but there's a lot of pressure on this team where the front office is saying, trust us with Justin Fields. You know, we're going to get him some weapons. We're going to get him a better offensive line. We're going to improve the defense. And they did all of that in the offseason. So now we're just waiting and expecting different results. And the Bears are going to have high expectations to at least go out there, win some games. I think right now, if they don't win at least 6 games this season, or at least 7 games maybe, I think that it's going to be a disappointment for them, and that's going to be a lot on their shoulders to try and accomplish that. Number 7, we have the Vikings, and the Vikings are just a very strange case because you've got a lot of young talent on the defensive side. If those guys can develop into stars, that defense can go from atrocious to in the next few years actually being pretty good. And the offense is actually really good as well. But, you know, if Kirk Cousins and this Vikings offense can't play like a top 5 offense, last year they were 8, I think they need to get up to 5 if they're going to be able to make up for this defense. High expectations for this team, and it's going to be really weird offseason next year if they either get knocked out in the very first round again this year, or even if they miss the playoffs, or at least don't win the division and the Lions win and then they lose by a lot in the first round. There's going to be a lot of questions. And Kirk Cousins will most likely not be renewed for a contract. He'll probably go to a different team. And right now, there's not any quarterbacks on this roster that I feel like can immediately come in after he's gone and produce. I think the Vikings are going to be at least good enough at the end of the year where if they don't make the playoffs, it'll be like 8-9. And that's not going to be good enough to get them a solid QB in this next draft. So there's a lot of pressure to make this year their year. Otherwise, even with the pretty impressive job that KOC and Kwesi have done with making this a competitive rebuild, where they're not completely tearing things down and they're also not trying to go all in with the next couple of years, it still is a situation where if they don't produce this year, there's going to be some turnaround. At number 6, we have the Ravens. This is a team where it's a big prove-it year for them. You know, you've got Lamar Jackson in, you've got OBJ being brought in, their defense is as good as it's been, and the offense is looking pretty good here on paper. And it's just one of those situations where year after year, the last couple of years at least, people have been saying, well, you know, Lamar just got hurt this year, and if we didn't have our second or even third string QB in. This Ravens team could be one of the best in the league. So then it comes down to the two questions. Well, one, is Lamar Jackson going to actually be healthy? Like, is that something he can do? And then the second question is going to be, if he's healthy, then prove it. Will you actually be able to take this team to that level that, what was it, 2019? 2019 to 2020 season was the year where the Ravens were the number one seed in the AFC and it didn't seem like any team could stop them. Can you get back up to that point with the guys that you have on this roster? Because if you can't, then there's going to be a lot of questions in Baltimore. So they've got a lot on their shoulders as well. Number 5, we have the Dallas Cowboys. And this is one of those teams where they're just going to perpetually have pressure on them, where the entire league seems to hate them. They want to see them, not falter and fail to succeed. And this is a year now where there was a big thing with the whole play calling in the last drive, and at the end of the day it ended with McCarthy saying, I'm going to call plays, and he was granted that, and he's going to be doing that for the season. And McCarthy has a lot of pressure now on him. There's no other person but him that can say, oh, well, there's some miscommunication on this play. No, this is completely your decision what you're going to call play. Obviously, the offensive and defensive coordinators have a say in it. I'm just saying, if that was the issue, then it's got to be fixed. And that it's as simple as that. And if the Cowboys don't produce this year, if the Cowboys, I bet they're going to lose the division because the Eagles are the best team in the league. If they make it to the first round and lose, or dare I say it, they even miss the playoffs because maybe the offense isn't as productive with the new play calling and everything, then is Dak going to be in the future plans for this team? What about the young stars? Are they going to be traded away? Are the more veteran guys on the offensive line and on defense going to want to leave? What about McCarthy? Is he still going to be the coach if he self-proclaims that he can call the plays that are going to get this team to a more successful point, and he can't do it? So Cowboys perpetually in the top 10 for the most pressure, but this year especially. Number 4, we have the Lions. This is a team that is hyped so much in the offseason. This is a team that lost a lot of games in the first half and won a lot in the second half. I think it could go either way. The Lions either could have the kind of season they had at the first half of last season or the second half. The Lions could be a team that wins the NFC North and actually makes it a couple rounds in the playoffs, or they could go 6-10 or 6-11. Sorry. The Lions, I feel like, are the team that is the toughest team to predict because they're a team based off of gritty performance and momentum. And that can swing a lot of different ways throughout the course of a season. And I just don't know with this team. But I think if the Lions go into this season with this much hype and fail and miss the playoffs again, then I don't know. I mean, first of all, Lions fans are going to riot. They have such high hopes. The NFL is going to be disappointed because I think a lot of fans want to see the Lions finally succeed because the poor Lions have been bad for so long. And there's also going to be a lot of questions in Detroit. Is this the type of coach and is this the type of culture that is going to legitimately build a championship team? Number 3, we have the Broncos, and this is a team that last season there was so much expectations. The defense was supposed to be really good, and then Russell Wilson was supposed to lead this offense to a point they hadn't been in recent years, and it just didn't happen. And I think that this year is a big prove-it year for Russ. It's a big prove-it year for the Broncos with Sean Payton coming in, because Nathaniel Hackett, that was maybe one of the worst head coaching performances I've seen. I'm going to be completely honest. The guy is a really good coordinator, and some guys are just built to be coordinators, but his head coaching performance was just one of the worst I've seen. And so that is a good excuse for why the Broncos didn't perform well last season, but this year there's no more excuses. Russell Wilson is either going to lead this team to the playoffs, or if he doesn't, it's time to sell the team, or not sell the team, to sell and rebuild for the next age of Broncos the Broncos franchise. And then we have the Bills at number 2. This is a team where it's kind of a similar situation to Joe Burrow and the Bengals, except for the fact that they haven't even made it to an AFC championship in the last few years. And also, I feel like there's more talent on this team that has the potential to leave if things get rough. I think that if the Bills don't at least make it past the divisional round this year, I don't know if Stephon Diggs is going to stay. There's a lot of guys on the defense that I think might not stay. And there's not enough young guys and not enough young core of this team that's built around Josh Allen, where I feel like this team could be a serious playoff threat in the coming years if some very key players are not there. I think that Josh Allen is slightly less capable than Joe Burrow of carrying a team completely by himself. I think he's a little more dependent on the O-line and the wide receivers around him. And this Bills team has just been through so much. This fan base has been through so much over the years. And so high of expectations this year. I think it'll be a complete failure if the Bills don't make it to the AFC Championship this year. And it's going to be tough because they're going to have to either beat the Bengals or the Chiefs. But guess what? The Chiefs and the Bengals are going to be around for the entirety of the rest of Josh Allen's career. So at some point, he's going to have to figure it out. And it's brutal and it's tough because the AFC is so much better than the NFC. But that's the reality. And the Bills are going to have to get that job done. And then finally, we have the team, the Hard Knocks team, the team that is being hyped harder than a team I've seen in the last few years, and that's the New York Jets. Aaron Rodgers comes to the Jets, and all of a sudden, they are going to be the next coming of the greatest show on turf, and I just don't quite get the hype. I understand that Aaron Rodgers is so much better than the quarterback room they had last year, and I get that if their offense had been better last year, they would have been a playoff team. But there's so much turnaround from last year, and yes, their team got better on paper, but I've never seen a team that has had so much hype around them when they haven't made the playoffs in years. They didn't even make the playoffs last year, and people are acting like anything short of making it to at least the divisional round and winning a couple of games in the playoffs is a failure. And I feel like that's very high expectations, higher than any other team on this list, even the Lions. And if this Jets team doesn't get to that point, I think there's going to be riots in New York. I think that this Jets team has promised so much to this fan base, and the entirety of the league has built it up. You know, the Jets have so much riding on this, and they still decided to do Hard Knocks. I mean, there's so many good players flocking to this team because they believe they can win a championship, and now Dalvin Cook is there too. I just feel like there's going to be a lot of angry players and a lot of angry fans if the Jets don't deliver on what their promise has been over this offseason. So those are the top 10 teams with the most pressure this season. Let me know if you think there's any team that should be on the list that isn't, or any team that should be off the list. Just let me know in the comments. I'm always happy to see what you feel and just weigh in on the videos that you see. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please like and subscribe. And again, remember my live stream, September 7th, the very first live stream in the history of this channel. I'll put more information in the description. More videos coming the rest of the week, and it's going to be a busy few weeks leading up to the season, and I can't wait. So thanks so much, and I'll see you on the flip side.